more shenanigans in the Texas House with them taking 3, 4, and 5-day weekends. What's going on over there? And then you have the Senate who's getting right to work. What's up with all this? Stay tuned today as we get our Texas legislative update from our friend Kathy Ponce. You don't want to miss this episode. All right, Kathy, welcome back to Patriots Revival. I'm excited that you're here to give us another legislative update for what's going on in the Texas House and the Texas Senate, because it's probably been a couple of weeks maybe since we talked to you last. So we want to get all of the info on what's been going on and what we can expect to see pretty soon. So what I want to talk about is, I know right before you and I hit record, you mentioned that we had some stuff happening today. And before you and I got on, I was online trying to look and see, and I didn't get that far. So let's go ahead and maybe start with what happened today.
Well, today marks the 30-day mark of session being in session, and we still don't have House committee. So if Burris goes to tomorrow, he will beat the Strauss record of the longest speaker to take time setting up committees. So no doubt that's going to happen because the day's almost over. So he made a statement he was going to have him at the beginning of the week. He didn't have him. He hasn't had him. So I don't know. The House, if you haven't been following the House, they're on vacation again until next Tuesday.
So are they still doing these 3 and 4 and 5-day long weekends? Because is somebody presenting that and then they all vote to do it? Or remind me of my parliamentary procedure. Does he just gavel and say, we're going to do that? Do all of them vote to say yay or nay?
They all vote, yeah. And so the main people, Brian Harrison has another great video out today. Nate Schatzlin, David Lowe, Shelley Luther, the conservatives are all voting no, let's get to work. You can make a subcommittee and we can get to work on Abbott's priorities, because Abbott's priorities have to be dealt with the first 60 days of session.
Let's talk about Abbott's priorities, because since you came on, we had Governor Abbott do the state of the state address, and he outlined those priorities. So let's go through those real quick for our audience that may have missed what he wants done in this session. And as you mentioned, this is what they have to work on immediately.
Yes. So Governor Abbott's priorities and their emergency priorities is property tax relief. Now, that is specific to the local level, and it is specific to the property tax rate and getting citizens to vote on any property tax rates that are incurred upon you through your ISD or your city council or county. Also in that priority is having those election dates in November. So we've seen a few bills filed on that already in regards to putting any bonds and tax increases onto the November ballot. So
Okay.
a couple bills there, because Republicans have a tendency to show up in November. They just don't show up to the municipal races.
Yeah.
Water investment. So he really wants to look at investment in water, ways that because Texas is running out of water. We're in deep doo-doo. Raise teacher pay, expand career training, which is vocational training, school choice, and bail reform, which we had the bail reform hearings today. And we have some news on that in the Texas House as well. So,
Okay.
And then also Texas Cyber Command, which is basically cybersecurity for everybody.
I guess I wasn't even aware of the bail reform.
So Joan Huffman has a great bail package, and she has filed it every single session for, I believe, the last 3 sessions. So she refiled it again. They had the hearings today. And
How did they have the hearings in the House if we don't even have committees, but it was on the Senate side?
the Senate side, Joan Huffman had, they had hearings today for bail reform. SB 9 is bail amounts go to the presiding judge, not a hearing officers. So, in other words, instead of the hearing officer setting a dollar bail for a murderer, right, the bail amounts need to go to the presiding judge because the presiding judges are elected. So, if we have these bail amounts that are being set super, super low, then these judges need to get elected out. SJR 17. Now, an SJR is a constitutional amendment. So SJR 17 is to deny bail to violent offenders.
Sounds like it's pretty cut and dry, plain and
Yeah.
simple, I guess.
Oh, she said this is cut and dry, and we're going to go hardcore. SJR 49 is denial of bail for illegal aliens. SB 1047 would enhance the public safety reporting system. So that's sort of a system that's set up for repeat offenders and had a lot to do with domestic violence. So that would be enhanced. And then SB 1048 would not allow nonprofit to bail out these violent criminals. Because we all know that the George Soros groups bail these guys out
Oh, yeah.
and they get back onto the streets.
Yeah.
So that would eliminate the nonprofit from being able to bail these guys out. And there was 167 people signed up to speak on these bills today. And I was worried. I was thinking, oh Lord, the left showed up, right? No, no. They were in support of these bills.
Okay.
Majority were in support of this bail reform. So we got notice today that Justin Burrows apparently has met with Dan Patrick in regards to bail reform. And he's listened to a lot of the victims and their issues with our bail. I mean, we have children being murdered by illegals, right? And he has, Rep Smithy is going to be carrying these bills in the House.
Okay.
So it looks like that this bail reform will more than likely go over to the House. And with Smithy, he can kind of get the conservatives and the more establishment together. So, and he won't budge on amendments. He's not going to budge to the Democrats on, well, we want an amendment for this or for that. So it looks like it's got a good future over in the House with Smithy and Burrows backing it.
Okay. But we need the House to do something. We need Burrows to assign those committee assignments and so these things can start moving. So
Yep.
let's back up a little bit because I know we talked on our last episode about the House rules. And I want to talk just briefly about what happened and maybe have you do a short synopsis of the House rules package and Democrat chairs and all of the shenanigans that went along with the Democrat vice chairs. So
Yeah.
let's talk about that real quick and bring everybody up to speed.
So after the day after you and I had our last legislative chat, they did do the rules, the House rules, and I don't think anybody in Texas thought what happened would happen. I mean, we were all so infuriated. I mean, for days we were mad, and basically Burrows and his team are saying, well, we banned Democrat chairs. We've banned them, and it's like, oh, you didn't. And a lot of people believed it. They were writing the code. They were putting it on social media and they were, oh my gosh, we did it. And it's like, no, 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 no. Stop.
Yeah.
Ask yourself this question. Why would every Democrat, with the exception of one Democrat, vote to ban themselves from being chairs?
Because they're strict
I mean,
with that.
they were committee chairs, right? I mean, they've always been committee chairs. So now all of a sudden, yes, I vote to ban myself as a committee chair.
Yep.
Well, yeah, you know why? Because you have more power as a vice chair than you do as a chair.
Yep.
They gave all the power to the vice chairs. And I mean, these house rules and what these vice chairs get to do, it's ridiculous. The chair shall, not might, not may, the chair shall arrange to ensure that witnesses designated by the vice chair are invited to testify at a public hearing. The vice chair can bring in their own witnesses for a bill, and they have to come.
Now that we have vice chairs that have all this power on these committees, they can't exclude testimony from anybody, can they?
No, but they can bring in. So let's say we have a strong conservative as the chair for elections,
Mhm.
and we're getting some of our bills in. Well, this vice chair can say, well, hold on. These are the people I want to testify. And the chair has to bring those people in that vice chair wants to testify. They can bring
So,
in the ACU. They can bring in anybody they want as invited testimony.
so it's not that they now, does that mean they take priority over other testimony that folks may share, want to come and share during those hearings? Or you're just saying they have to, if they want them there, they have to be there?
So when you go to public hearings, you have the invited testimony and then you have the public testimony.
Okay.
So for the invited testimony, whoever the vice chair wants as invited testimony, the chair has to accept
Okay.
their request. It's just tainted. I mean, you're going to have them bringing in all their leftist invited testimony, and then you're going to have your chair has their conservative testimony, and it's just going to be a
It could
joke.
drag out to where, I know you've been at some committee hearings that lasted well into the middle of the night or early morning hours because there were so many people that wanted to testify. But now with this, do you foresee that dragging out even more?
Yeah, I think that we might get. They've kind of stopped testimony now at 5, 6 p.m. Which I mean, I'll stay
Oh,
there all night. Shoot for me, but
is that
having
for this?
this past session, they were cutting off testimony a lot earlier.
Yeah.
I know a lot of committee chairs had the cutoff time as midnight. So there'll be no 4 a.m., 3 a.m. leaving the Capitol. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if this vice chair wants 6 people to have invited testimony in the election committee, they get their spot time to speak.
Wow.
So it could definitely drag out the public hearings.
Now, with the vice chairs, with Democrats being vice chairs of all the committees, wasn't there an allotment of funds for
Yes.
the vice chairs? And what was that for? You correct me, was it 4 grand or something like that?
Well,
So
yeah,
what is that for?
for,
I mean,
from it's for like publicity. If they want to get some publicity out there, it's to bring in the invited testimony people. A lot of times they'll fly people in or bring people in from across the state, have to put them up in a room. It's for whatever they really want to spend it on.
but we've not had anything like this before, correct? Where we didn't have a dollar amount assigned to, definitely not to a vice chair, but so this is all new. I mean, has this ever happened in the history of the Texas House?
No,
What
never.
wow. So
And it even says measures or matters designated by the vice chair are promptly scheduled for a public hearing. So whatever the vice chair brings up to that committee chair, he has to get that public hearing scheduled promptly.
wow. So yeah, so even though we're going to have Republicans chairing all of these committees, they still have to they have to accommodate the vice chairs and all the power that has been granted to them in this session.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So if the vice chair comes up and says, well, I want to have an election hearing on ranked choice voting. Okay, that committee chair's got to schedule it. So that's taking time out of the week in the election committee away from us, the Republicans, and what we want to have a hearing on. And so all they is fill up the calendar and screw us over.
So let me ask you, because I don't think any of us saw this coming. I don't know.
No.
You being plugged in a lot more than I am, you may have, but I think a lot of the grassroots were pretty shocked at this, as you said. And so, do you think this is worse than when we had Democrat chairs?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, what I thought.
Because we made a lot of strides with people. We went from having 12 to having 8. And then maybe this session we would have had only 4. We can't even have Republican vice chairs. They're banned. Before we used to have like a Republican chair and a Republican vice chair. We didn't have to have a mandatory Democrat chair. So yeah, this is worse. This is definitely worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I saw this and I was reading it and I got over my anger, I thought, you know what? This is going to be the session of just having to kill bad bits.
Yeah. They'll probably not be, with all of this going on. It's hard to imagine that we can get any good legislation to go through or pass through the House because of all of this red tape. I mean,
Yeah.
blue tape pretty much. So, wow. And no committee assignments being made. And you said you don't think at the time of this recording, those have not been done. This is the week of February 10th. We don't have any inkling when you said Burrows might get to that tomorrow, which would be the 13th.
Well, if he doesn't, he said he would have them by the beginning of the week. Obviously, he doesn't. So today, he advised Stroud for taking the longest amount of time for committee assignments. Tomorrow, he will break that tie and he
What?
will be with the longest time.
Why do you think he's doing this, Kathy?
There's several reasons. I mean, he could be trying to get the clock to run out. It generally takes 3 sessions before a freshman becomes a chair. So this session with this rule, all the freshmen are going to be chairs. So he could actually be in his mind trying to lay out the freshman chairs, what committees here, should they go? And I know that the state reps fill out a form of what committees they want to be on, what their top 3 priority committees are. So, I mean, he could be trying to put the puzzle pieces together of, saying, okay, this person might be a good chair here. They want to be on this committee. Now, who am I going to give him as the vice chair? And he could be lining up a freshman with a real backstabbing, hardcore, in your face Democrat as vice chair.
Um,
So
Setting him up for hazing almost.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we don't know. I do know that he has the biggest staff of any speaker in the history of Texas. His staff is an entourage. I mean, every day there was another announcement about a new staff member, new staff member, new staff member. It's got to be up to like 22 staff members, right? And I'm thinking, you're the speaker. Why you need so much staff?
Yeah. Wow.
And then
Well,
they also, just so you know, y'all think that Hugh Brady's gone, right? Because the House employees, so to speak, the House administration took their oath the other day. And Sharon Carter was the only parliamentarian that took the oath. So everybody was saying, oh, Hugh Brady's gone. He's no more Hugh Brady. No, 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 no. He's still working in the office. He's still behind the scenes.
wow. Well, along those lines of Burrows, and let's move into school choice a little bit because we have seen some movement on that in the Senate. But to stick with the Burrows, as you know, President Trump kind of called out the Texas House, and in I think a tweet this week on True Social, I believe, and just pretty much said, I think, I don't have the exact words, but he was basically saying, "I hope that the Texas House can get something done." And I know Burrows just responded 2 words and just said, "We will."
Mhm.
So let's back up and talk about SB2, and then want to get your thoughts on how that might change when it comes over to the House, or do you think that they'll accept it as is? And so maybe let's talk a little bit about the good and the bad of SB2, which is on a school choice bill.
Well, first of all, I think Trump is doing great things, but education is a state issue and he needs to leave it to Texas to figure it out. I think that there's a lot of issues in SB2 that I don't like. And I think that once it comes over to the House, I do think that there will be some amendments. I definitely think there will be amendments. I know that if you look at Katrina Pearson's X page and Wes Riddell's page, they do have some amendments that they want to bring in, but we'll see where it goes. I mean, we have a Democrat control pretty much with the establishment.
I'm still kind of scratching my head because our Senate is, we know they are more conservative than even our elected Republican House members are. In reading this bill, I was still a little bit confused as to why knowing some of our strong conservative senators that we have, that this passed in the Senate with some of the not so great things about this bill. Do you think that they were just trying to just check a box and say, okay, we got it done? Or why do you think there wasn't more discussion or more changes to that bill?
Yeah, I don't know because last session, Creighton did take amendments. Like he made a lot of amendments. I think there was 3 school choice bills that were, in the process. By the time he was done with it, the last one, he ran out of time. So it didn't have time to go over to the House and actually be discussed on the floor. The time ran out on. So I think in their minds, they're thinking, okay, we're just going to send it over to the House and they can deal with the amendment issues that the homeschoolers have, that the people have. Let's have them deal with it. Then it'll come back to the Senate and they'll go from there. So I think it was just a way of getting it over to the House. Let's get it over there. Is Burrows on our side on this? Or did he make a deal with the Democrats that you vote for me and I'll kill school choice?
Interesting. Well, in addition to school choice, what else has the Senate been working on? I know you
Well,
talked a
they
little bit about the bail reform.
well, bail reform was today, and then yesterday they had property tax relief hearings
Okay.
and SB4, which is SJR2, because it would go to a vote of the citizens. It raises the homestead exemption from 100,000 to 140,000.
Well, wasn't there some language in there? I think I read or saw that there's also an additional 10,000 for, was it persons of certain disabilities and maybe even
Yes.
senior citizens?
Yes,
Okay.
there was.
Okay.
Yeah.
That I did read
Um,
correct. Okay.
but that homestead exemptions are Dan Patrick's priority. It's
Okay.
not Abbott's priority. Abbott's priority is reining in the property tax rate. And so it's going to be interesting to see where this goes in the House.
So they just had hearings on that in the Senate. Nothing's passed in
It passed
regard
committee
to
yesterday.
it passed committee, but it hasn't had a floor vote yet in the Senate.
No,
Okay.
they'll probably
When
do
does
that tomorrow.
Okay. Gosh, the Senate is always, they are just getting to work, getting things done, and then we've got the House over there that's just on vacation, and it's
Yeah,
quite frustrating.
yeah, it is. It really is. Even doing like calls to action at this point on the Senate, unless I see something that's really like, oh boy, we better get on that. The Senate's our friend. I mean, they're going to do what's right. I really want to save our energies and our focus for when the House gets going. I don't want to burn people out on the Senate.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, I'm completely forgot last time when we were on. If people want to stay plugged in and keep up with what's going on, aside from just tuning into this podcast, or if they're not doing any research on their own, I know that you do, at least for our Ellis County Patriots and precinct chairs and whomever, you have emails that you send out where there are, as you mentioned, action items or alerts. And are you okay with sharing that information with the audience if anybody watching or listening to this podcast wants to take part in signing
Oh,
up for
yeah.
your email updates? So
Oh,
how
yeah.
do people find, how would they subscribe to those House and Senate, basically our legislative alerts?
Just send me an email at Texas Politics TX at gmail.com and just say, I want to sign up for your alerts. Or I want to sign up for your call to actions. And then they'll automatically be put on the list. And anything, any call to actions, any trips we're taking, they will get email notices to come on down or get your house little, link sent in and or make this phone call, make that phone call, and they'll be alerted to everything. I mean, I'll give them all the information. I'll give them the bill, who to call, all the phone numbers, everything they need to make an impact down in Austin. And they'll get the link for the public comment to the Texas House. If somebody doesn't know what to say, I'd be more than happy to work with them on that. So, yeah, any and all updates, just send me an email and I'll get you on the list.
Yeah, your emails are great, especially for people like me, working people who you don't always have time to keep up with everything, but you get those emails. And so, I'll be able to read through that and say, okay, yeah, that's an issue. Yeah, that's important. Or, oh, I'm able to identify, oh, yeah, that's a hot one for me, and then take action. So, your emails are very informative and very good. And they're really good so that you don't have to, I mean, you just, even your format and everything, Kathy, is just really easy to read and easy to follow. So, folks, I encourage you to sign up for that if you want to really stay up on what's going on in the Texas House and Senate right now during this legislative session. So, aside from what awaiting committee assignments in the House, anything else we need to kind of keep our eye on?
Well, today at 5 p.m., we had two really bad bills filed. And I knew the battle was coming. I just didn't want to deal with it. In the last few sessions, I'm sure everybody knows that we've had gambling has been really been pushed upon Texans. And the last couple of sessions, they've always been bills. So we've been able to fight bills because they're bad bills. And the Senate's always helped us by killing the bills. Well, now the Texas House, our lovely Sam Harless and Charlie Guerin have filed constitutional amendments.
Oh,
Let it go to the voters. Let it go to the voters.
hmm.
We're not going to fight this anymore. We're just going to take it to the voters and let them decide.
So,
And I'm afraid that the Senate's going to go along with that.
so you're saying since those were filed that way, help me and our audience understand, when it's filed that way, you're saying those will not go through a committee for hearing or anything, or they will or they won't.
They won't.
It's just a floor vote.
Yeah,
It has to pass through both chambers, though, correct?
correct. Now, I mean, they can do public hearings on it, but I'm really doubtful that boroughs would do that at this point in time.
So if you
Uh,
don't want, if people like myself and people watching or listening to this podcast are against gambling, organized gambling in Texas, then that's where we need to just light up the phones of everybody in both chambers. If it's not going to be a committee hearing, instead of just contacting the individuals on that committee, we need to just contact everybody before those floor votes occur, correct?
that's correct. Now, they can, like I said, put it to a committee hearing. It can go. And constitutional amendments have been in committees before, but we just don't know at this point. So we need to really get the battle against the casinos started now, because I don't know if the Senate will be our friend. They might be tired too and say, yeah, just let it go to a vote. Let's just get this. Let's just get it to a vote. And I think we all know it's hard to pass. It's hard to fight anything that's going to go on to the ballot as an amendment. It's just really hard to do that statewide. The money that's going to be thrown in commercials and paid block walkers and the money that's just going to come at us, it's going to be really, really hard.
Like Sands Casino and a lot of these, or Sands Corporation, I should say, and a lot of these gambling groups, lobbyist groups just flood money into so many candidates' campaigns this last election season, did we not?
Yep. And they've got like, I don't know, some ungodly amount of lobbyists assigned to every state rep. And then, they've got like 10, 15, maybe 20 lobbyists on these guys,
Wow.
just throwing the world at them.
What's your feel, your gauge? Because I feel like it may be a little split, but yet again, all of the campaign contributions for both House members and Senate members. What is your feeling on whether or not this would pass both chambers?
I think it'll pass the House. I really haven't got, and this is important. Everybody says, well, you're a Republican. Well, yeah, I am a Republican, but I have to get the feel of the Democrats on this. I've only gotten the feel of the Republicans on this. I don't know if there's some Democrats that might come aboard with us, especially the ones in the Dallas area, the ones in the Houston area, if they know that this increases trafficking, it increases so many things,
Right.
domestic violence.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
So I don't know if we can get some Democrats on our side. This is where we have to learn and we have to understand that sometimes we have to talk to both sides. I'm willing to talk to them. I'm going to see where it goes from here. But I think an HJR, which is a constitutional amendment, will fly to the House.
yeah.
And I'm not confident that it won't be killed in the Senate this time, because I haven't heard Dan Patrick say, no, don't bring it over here. We're killing it. It's dead on arrival. I haven't heard that this session.
Yeah, so that's why it's going to be imperative that we just melt the phone lines. It sure
Yeah.
we've got to let our voices be heard. So,
Yep.
wow.
It is. It's very important. We've got to start now because it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah. What else? Anything else we need to keep our eye on between now and next time we do another episode?
We've got the RPT border bills that have been assigned, so we're waiting on those. We've got some good border bills that we can start pushing for, and then we also have the RPT election bills that have come through, but that's pretty long list right now. So those are some things we can also fight up, start working on getting those legislative priorities through to the state reps, letting them know that this is what we want. That just because Trump's in the White House doesn't mean we shouldn't set up border bills in case we ever get the Democrat back in the White House. We've got to be proactive. We've got to push it into these guys' heads. We got to be proactive, proactive, proactive. We don't want to, be behind anymore. Proactive, not reactive. So yeah, that's something that we can definitely push with them too.
Okay. Well, Kathy, today's been a great update. I really appreciate you coming on. Before we end, tell everybody again one more time how they can subscribe to your emails, that for everything that's going on, these alerts that they can get from you on all of these issues, or maybe even other issues that are important to them. Tell everybody again the email address one more time.
Texas Politics TX@gmail.com.
And Texas is spelled out. Right.
And you can always text me 214-334-5087. If it's easier for you to text me, you can text me as well.
All right. Well, Kathy, thank you very much again for coming on. And I know we'll be talking to you again here pretty soon. Oh, do you have one more thing?
We'll be at the Capitol next Wednesday. I don't know when this is going to go out, but on the 18th, 19th, I will be at the Capitol if anyone wants to meet me down there. They will
Okay.
be doing a resolution in honor of Jill Glover. And then after, I'm going to walk the halls in her honor. So if anybody wants to go and walk the halls with me, you're welcome to meet me down there.
I will actually be there myself. I'm going to be there with an association for our contractors group doing some visits. Yeah. So anyway, so I'll maybe hook up with you and try to see you next Wednesday.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay. Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.
Well, folks, that wraps up our second interview with Kathy Ponce as she gave us another legislative update for Texas now that we are 30 days into the session. And as we learned, our Texas House is just dragging their feet. Dustin Burrows, the speaker, just taking time off, electing Democrats and giving them so much power as vice chairs that it will really be interesting to see what happens, if anything, if any good legislation gets passed in the Texas House this session. But then, as we learned from Kathy's update, the Senate is hard at work, passing a school choice bill, doing bail reform, hearings on property tax reform, all kinds of good things going on in the Texas Senate, as always. It's too bad that our Texas House can't operate just like our Texas Senate. So, anyway, hopefully, this information was helpful for you in getting some updates on what's going on down there at the Pink Dome in Austin. Now, for your altar call this week, I am going to encourage you to subscribe to Kathy's email alerts because she will be sharing, as she talked about in the episode, different bills and hearings when they go into a committee. She provides all of the committee chairs' information, their phone numbers, so you can share your thoughts on whether or not you are for or against a certain bill. So, whatever your issue is, whatever is the burr under your saddle or the hair on your biscuit, maybe it's the border, maybe it's school choice, maybe it's property tax reform, maybe it's bail reform, maybe you're against these casinos. It could be a plethora of issues. Get ready and subscribe to Kathy's emails because she will detail all of that for you. And she makes it so easy for you to make those phone calls. And it doesn't even take that much time. Her email address again is texaspoliticstx@gmail.com. Again, that's texaspoliticstx@gmail.com. So that's all we have for this week's episode of Patriots Revival. Don't forget our weekly verse that we share with you from Psalm 119:25 that says, "Though I lie in the dust, revive me by your word." Dust off that Bible, folks. Get in God's word. Hopefully you have a relationship with Jesus Christ. Get in his word, get to know him so you can gain wisdom and knowledge and share that with the world and let your light shine and let others see Jesus in you. That's all we have for you this week. We'll see you next time on Patriots Revival. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed the show, please follow us and tell others. If today's show revived your faith and your inner patriot, join the Patriots Revival Facebook group by going to facebook.com/groups/Patriots Revival for resources on how to get involved in being salt and light in a world of darkness. Finally, if you would like to contribute to the production costs of the Patriots Revival podcast, you can do so through Zelle by inputting info@patriotsrevival.com as the recipient. Thanks again for listening. I hope you have a reviving week.